everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cindy, and I'm the country manager for Vietnam. We're delighted to have you to join us for what promises to be a very insightful session. Today, our goal is to help you understand the differences between TIA-942 and Uptime certifications and guide you in choosing the right certification for your data center. We're going to focus predominantly on these two prominent standards, and I believe by the end of this presentation, you have a clear understanding of why many organizations particularly gravitate towards the TIA-942 standard. I'm incredibly pleased to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. David Goh, our Regional Sales Manager at EPI Group of Companies. David is a seasoned professional with over a decade of experience in data center industry. His passion and expertise have been instrumental in enhancing industry standards, working intensively with both local and international data center operators. David has provided services that not only help data centers achieving compliance, but also foster a culture of continuous improvement. He possesses a wealth of knowledge, which he willingly shares to contribute and drive advancement in the industry. Before we jump into the presentation itself, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions during the session, please use the Q&A section to post them. We will address as many as we can once David has completed his presentation. We'll also be monitoring the chat, but the Q&A session is preferred for questions. Please also be aware that we will be circulating the presentation deck after the event has concluded and also upload the presentation to YouTube if you wish to review it again or share with your colleagues. With that, I'd like to hand it over to David. David, over to you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. All right, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Cindy, once again for the warm welcome. So my name is David. If you don't know who I am the Regional Sales Manager from EPI Group of Companies. So today we will be talking about TIA versus Uptime. So we'll highlight as much as I can on the differences between TIA and Uptime. So let's begin. So for those who do not know who we are, so EPI was originally founded in the UK back in 1987. So we then relocated the HQ all the way to Singapore in the late 1990s. So today we have 12 direct offices worldwide and a very large partner network which active in over 60 countries, more than 130 cities, providing global reach. Our mission statement is simple: protecting your interests. The commitment we've upheld for more than 38 years now. Yeah, every service we develop, and deliver is rooted in this principle. We achieve this by making sure we hire the best in the industry. My colleagues are not only exceptionally skilled, but also deeply passionate about their work and dedication to fulfilling our mission. All right, in EPI, we always talk about the 3 Ps. When we are talking about the data centers, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of businesses are we actually in? At its core, a data center is fundamentally about trust. User entrust data centers with the assurance that their IT system and applications will always be available, that their data is secure, and the data center will be consistently performed as expected. All right, there are 3 vital foundations to building trust. We term them 3 Ps: product, processes, and people. Right? Let's talk about the first P. The first P refers to product, which refers to the data center infrastructure itself. Mission-critical data centers require a robust and resilient physical infrastructure to support business, which are typically based on standards such as the TIA-942 and ISO 22237, and many others. Once the facility is established, right, we talk about this second P. Data center operators, owners need to implement this second P. The processes are required to manage infrastructure effectively and efficiently. Right, last but not least, the third P, and of course the people, right? Component staff is required to execute these processes to uphold high standards of resilience, availability, security, and performance. So EPI offers, service offering are built on these fundamentals, right? All these three P's that I mentioned earlier. For data center facilities, we provide audit and certification services covering both data centers from a design aspect as well as the physical facilities. For operations, we can assist data centers in developing runbooks, conduct assessment, and offer audit and certification for operational excellence based on the DCOS in-long data center operation standards, which is a quality management framework for data center operations. For people, we offer training framework covering all aspects, including designs, operations, migration, risk management, and compliance. Our programs are globally accredited, ensuring our client receive the best expertise and certification. So we are well respected in the industry, in my opinion, right? We work a lot with various important institutions. Here are some of the awards we receive throughout our career. So some of our customers, we are working with all types of organization globally, right? All the way you can see, right? All the way from hyperscalers to government bodies. All right, the importance of industry standards. Data center complexity, right? Data center are very complex in my opinion, right? Many elements are part of the infrastructure. Think about electrical, mechanical systems, network, fire safety. Today, they have gotten so much bigger, right? And they have to build it so much quicker nowadays compared to the old days, right? We have gone from building the data center from 1 to 5 megawatt to more than over 100 megawatt today, right? What used to be a large DC, 5 megawatt, and it's not even a phase one nowadays, right? More staffs, more technology, data center size got so much bigger, and you got to build so much faster, right? And right now, everybody is talking about AI. Things are just getting crazier. Let's look at the cost of data center downtime, right? As we can see, right, large portion is still caused by human error. We did a generic research. Somehow human error still play a big part today, right? But most of the time, we think that, as we can see in the chart, right, UPS has 29% failure rate, right? But, we did a generic research, right? So somehow what we realize is most of the time is the fault doesn't really lies on the hardware, but it was the initial design that is incorrect, have some issues with that. So this is with that, it causes downtime caused by the hardware. So as we can see, there are many standards, guidelines in the industry, right? But so it is important, right? We have data center, right? We have the standards to set it as a baseline to get the quality of the data center. As you can see, once again, there are plenty of standards that covers things like fire protection, electrical system. So what some of these standards have done is combine all these standards and bundle them as a whole. In a way, data center can be properly guided to design build data center. So the standard that shows in the red are the most commonly used within the data center industry. So as you can see, we have EN 5600, which is commonly used in the Europe, right? ISO 22237 globally, right? And of course, the very famous one, TIA-942, Uptime, XC002. So let's talk about the type of standards. We need to understand what exactly a standard is and what is it about. From a standard development view, there are three different standards, right? We have de facto standard that is not exactly documented anywhere officially, right? Like the QWERTY keyboard, right? No document stating that this is how you should build a keyboard, but everybody just follows, right? And we have formal standard written by organization aiming to guide industries or segments. And the last one, we have de jure standard, right? Which is local code, local enforcement, local regulation. For example, fire suppression, electrical codes. Standard Development Organization, SDO, who write these standards, right? SDO write the standards. So is SDO, group of people. They create, develop, and maintain the standards. They will retain the life cycle of the stand. The SDO is being oversight by an external party called the Accreditation Organization. They make sure that everything goes the right way. Standards development process. Process of the development of a standards. So let's walk through it. It all starts with this initial idea that there is a problem in the industry, right? So we would like to do something about it to ensure the quality will maintain in this typical element. So what they do is they have to call for a committee. So the next step is, right, they have to define, right, the committee. Normally we call it a technical committee, right? This committee will make sure that the technical content is part of the standard in their view. They are the technical experts from the industry. Once that is developed, this will be pushed onto the bigger public, like the industry ballot, so other experts, like users experts, etc., can review the document and add their insights. This all to overlook the insights and to make sure it is complete. After that, it will go through one of the final stage, right? The one we call it final default ballot. As the last step, once they got the proof, it will then be published to the big public into the world for people to start adapting and practicing internally within their company. So what would be the benefit of official accreditation? It is quite a big process. The accreditation body will ensure that SDO has a proper development cycle and process. A good balance must be maintained. End users, right? Vendors, submatter experts, customers on daily basis. Not everybody can join, and not everybody can join to maintain a good balance. We need to make sure that we have every single expert from every different side of the industry to be part of it. Not all considerations must be taken seriously to make sure the standard will be complete. There must be a consensus vote with no objection to the standard. There are processes for appeals when this occurs. So who executes this assessment, right? Which is people like us, company like us. EPI, we are a certification body, right? And most of the time, organizations tend to refer themselves as different terms, right? We probably heard of RCB, Registered Certification Body, CAB, Conformity Assessment Body, CB, Certification Body. So this will conduct with a certification body, right? So we provide impartial audit, completely neutral, independent. This is to ensure the process that everyone follows their audit to get completed is completely impartial and accurate. All right, topic for the day. So this is where we talk about some of the highlights, key differences of Uptime versus TIA. I hope I can bring some clarity today. So let's go through it one by one. Country of origin, as you can see, both Uptime and TIA are from the United States of America. In terms of a year of incorporation, so Uptime started in 1993, where TIA was incorporated in 1988. So type of organization, so Uptime is, of course, a commercial company, and TIA is a non-profit organization. So is Uptime accredited standards development organization? No. And TIA? Yes, TIA is the SDO for the standards. And does the standards go for accreditation for Uptime case as is shown clearly? It's not available. So where for TIA, it is accredited by ANSI. So let's look at the latest publication. So the latest publication released by Uptime was back in 2018. So where for TIA had released the latest edition of TIA-942C version 2024 last year, April. Right. So is there any, like, in terms of change of cycle, does it regularly have to be updated? So as we can see, no. And for Uptime case, it's not mandatory. But where for TIA, according to ANSI, it will be changed and updated between 3 to 7 years. So here is the highlight. As you can see, the differences is very big different here. So document size, right? Where Uptime have only 13 pages in overall, and TIA has 162 pages. So TIA standards covers a lot more comprehensive. So literally from A to Z. So textual description, Uptime, high level. TIA, very detailed description. So they explain everything, why, what, how. Audit criteria, so Uptime, partial. TIA covers as a whole, your whole data center, so which is known as full. Conformity level known as, from Uptime perspective, it is known as tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. From TIA perspective, we call it rated 1, 2, 3, and 4. Outcome based, both yes. Guideline or standard. Uptime is a guideline. As I mentioned earlier, they didn't go through the proper process of how a standard has to be developed, where TIA actually follows the proper rules, proper process to make the document a legally standard. So adoption, both are globally adopted. So this is the scoop under the standards or guideline. So as is shown clearly, uptime covers only electrical and mechanical, where TIA covers a lot more wider, a lot more comprehensive. It covers all along from electrical, mechanical, telco, site location, architecture, safety, physical security, as well as fire safety. Uptime tier, we have TIA, right? So we're still here. So let's talk about the global accreditation scheme. Is uptime accredited? No, right? And TIA is accredited by ANSI, as I mentioned earlier. So audit process, uptime self-defined, TIA is solely following ISO. So design certification life cycle. So uptime certificate expired every 2 years, and TIA design certification expired in a year. But in the event, if you have successfully obtained the DCDV or the design certification from TIA, and the build required more than a year, so you can always write back to us to state the reason that the construction is still under construction, still yet to be completed, that can be extended upon writing. So we talk about facilities certificate life cycle, uptime, yep, lifetime. There's no expiry date. And TIA expired every 3 years. No, we are following ISO, as I mentioned, ISO based. So every certification required you to do surveillance, and recertification. So this is the scoop under TIA 942, right? We cover site location, architectural, electrical, mechanical, telecommunication, physical security, safety, fire detection, suppression, facilities monitoring. Scope is very wide at TIA. So adoption of the TIA 942 from a global perspective. A global survey indicated that 78% of the respondents used the TIA as a standard of choice when designing and building their data center. More and more companies decide that they want to move forward with certifying to the TIA 942. In some countries, we see that, right? If you want to house a government data internally, you must strictly follow the TIA 942 standards. Let's talk about the requirement of each and every rating, right? Rated 1, baseline availability, right? Capacity without redundancy. Rated 2, addition of the redundant components to critical parts of the facilities. TIA does recognize that different data centers have different criteria for business availability, right? So we have differences from 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course, the very famous one, rated 3, which is concurrently maintainable, right? So this allows you to have pre-planned maintenance internally. And last but not least, rated 4. Rated 4 focus on fault tolerant. It allows you to have one fault at a single time. So audit and certification, right? The variety and in the TIA standard, what we have internally is we have the design validation and the construction facilities validation on the first pillar. On the second one, as you can see, we have TIA 942 ready, right? And we have modular DC certification, and we have product certification as well. The available TIA 942 certification. Some of the examples which you can see. So we have DCDV, Design Documentation Certification, DCCC, which is our Constructed Facility Certification. We have TIA 942 ready for container, and we have modular certification for micro modular data centers, right? And we have last product certification for all your hardwares, your UPS, generators, etc. The myth busting. TIA 942 is an American standard which cannot be applied internationally, right? The answer is no. From the early days, from the 2005s when it was first released, it stated which voltage must be stated. All of this cleared from the standards. The TIA 942C is completely written globally for global purpose. EPI website, our website, have the list of data center that is certified, which you can see it on www.epi-certification.com. So TIA 942 certification is just a paper checklist exercise. Answer is false. TIA 942 audits are outcome-based, like no key criteria are listed. What we do during the audit is come down to the facilities and do physical inspection. This assessment will be done on test after your commissioning, right? So we look at all your data, all your design document. So all the data, all the testing report, every single report that you have in place, that's how we do all the judgment. TIA does not certify data center for conformity with TIA 942. The answer is correct. TIA is the SDO, like ISO. SDOs does not conduct certification. Instead, they rely on certification body like us, which is accredited to perform the audits and issue the certification. That is the difference. TIA 942 certification is more difficult to obtain compared to uptime certification. Yes and no, right? TIA covers a broader scope, offering more comprehensive assessment for the entire data center, which may perceive as more challenging, right? In general, we cover a lot more. We cover a larger scope compared to uptime. So, it's normal and it's common for people to have a misunderstanding, thinking that TIA is very, very difficult to achieve, where for uptime has only power and cooling, it is way easier to be achieved. So when comparing the same scope, if we talk about, just electrical and mechanical, TIA and uptime apply the same similar outcome-based requirement. Therefore, TIA is not inherently harder to achieve compared to uptime. Like I mentioned earlier, rated 3 in TIA versus the tier 3 in uptime is the same. We're both focusing on concurrently maintainable. If your data center does not meet all your TIA criteria, it cannot be certified. The answer is false. Non-conformities are categorized as major, minor, following ISO audit principles. Certification can still be granted if no major non-conformities are found. So in the event, if we discovered any major non-conformities within the DC, that is not the end of the world. So you will be given enough sufficient time to perform mitigation towards the gaps that were discovered. So upon completion, and we will do another round of checking, and there is no major non-conformity discovered, you will still receive your certification. You can't use the term tier for TIA-based data center as Uptime own tier. Uptime does not own the word tier. You and I know, right? However, ideally, you use the term rated or rating when referring to TIA 942 for TIA 942 based data center. Remember, tier and rated have the same outcome objective. Hence, many data centers still use the term tier, despite being a TIA 942. Yeah, I've heard a lot of our customers who is certified TIA 942, and they still address themselves as tier 3. From our opinion, we don't find it an issue because the outcome is the same. And moreover, yeah, like it mentioned, Uptime does not own the word tier. A data center cannot be certified for both Uptime and TIA 942. Well, no, we have customers who have both Uptime and TIA, right? Like I mentioned, the outcome-based principle of Uptime and TIA 942 are equal for the tier or rating levels. However, Uptime has some additional requirement for generators, mechanical infrastructure. They do not violate TIA 942 requirements, but are additional. So TIA has a broader scope than Uptime, but these requirements are additional to Uptime requirement, not a conflict. So what we have today is, we will also be sharing a little bit with you on what you could do. We have some program called Upgrade from Uptime to TIA 942. Why would you do it? Why upgrade your data center from Uptime to TIA? But more and more company decided to move forward with the TIA 942 standards, right? Let's go through some real life reason. Lack of scope. The scope is a really big thing, right? Credibility issues. It could be silly if you are a telco data center to only certify your electrical and mechanical, but not on your telecommunication, right? Design certification, right? It doesn't match the implementation. Tier 4 or 3 in real life, this is a big problem for the DC, right? The DC and the end user. The costs are very high. High cost of moving from uptime tier design to uptime constructed facilities, very costly, very hard to justify. You have to spend a lot in order for you to move from the design certification to the facility certification. Uptime constructed certification, high risk for constructed facilities. Construction certification requires live testing, right? Widespread adoption of TIA certification, competitive requirement by MNCs, financial institution, telco, government organization. So in TIA, we do not do testing. So which means by undergoing the audit or assessment with us, you are not required to shut down your data center. Let's look at what are the upgrade options that we have. You can upgrade from your uptime design certificate to TIA design certification. You can also upgrade your uptime design certification directly to TIA constructed facility. Uptime constructed facility certification to TIA constructed facility certification. Eligibility. Data center must have an uptime certification. So which means your data center are supposed to have an existing and valid certification. Even though your design certification might have expired, it is still acceptable. Uptime has two-tier certification scheme, the design and the constructed facility. Right? You can join us. Uptime constructed facility do not have an expiry date. It is expected that the DC operator or owner reports changes upon uptime, upon which uptime will then conduct a new assessment. So let's say you have any certification currently, whether expired or non-expired, you are eligible to upgrade to TIA, the real certification. So benefit of upgrading to TIA certification. As an owner or operator, you enhance overall risk management, broader audit scope, right? We cover scope that uptime does not. So we cover scope including telecom, site location, physical security, and so on. So competitive advantage in tenders, cost-effective and audit and certification model. So investor and board strengthen asset value through comprehensive accredited certification, reduce exposure to operational and reputational risk, demonstrates commitment to best practices and governance. So end users and clients, you will increase confidence in the facility's resilience and availability expectation, alignment with global standards with across multiple domains, better assurance for critical workloads. So for facilities manager, you will have a clear data center design, facilities framework covering a wider scope, minimizing the hidden risks that we are not aware, reduce chances of human error-related downtime. So let's talk about the overall overview audit process. So step one, as you can see, initially what we could do to begin the conversation, we will start with the proposal submission. If everything is okay, so we will then go into the purchase order. And of course, we are more than happy to sign all the NDA, which we have been doing all this while. So let's say we have successfully gone through the first stage, we will then go into the second stage, where we prepare for the audit. Depending on which services you go with, so you still have to submit all the design documentation. So for certain companies who have been up and running, so you are not 100% required to go through the design certification, because we believe by changing the paper, it doesn't change the building. So for greenfield, we usually recommend you to go with the design certification first. So this is to ensure and to minimize as much risk as possible. So for the design certification, we will do the design documentation review offsite. So this is to ensure that you will not spend so much money with our guys being on site, review every single document. So for the constructed facility certification, we will be performing the assessment or audit at your data center facilities. Once we have completed all this audit and assessment, we will then move into reporting. So we have offsite analysis for audit findings. So we will do report writing. So report writing, we'll do it back in our place. It'll take about 3 to 4 weeks time. So once the report is ready, we'll share with you. So this is where we move into the next stage called corrective actions. Right? This is where you are supposed to let us know for every single gaps or non-conformities that were discovered during the audit. So what are you going to do? How are you going to do? When are you going to do? So you are supposed to share with us what are your plans? How are you going to do it? Right? So let's say all the correction active has been successfully completed, right? There is no more major non-conformities within the report. So this is where we can then move into the next stage, which is the issuance of the certificate. So once you have the certificate, so this is where then the cycle of maintaining the certificate starts. You are required to do surveillance audit on an annual basis for year 1 and year 2. And on the 3rd year, you are required to do a recertification audit. So when we look at the certificate maintenance, so this is where you have to update us on every single changes that you have made on an annual basis during the surveillance audit 1, surveillance audit 2, the recertification. So this is where you share with us what you have done, what changes you have made, or you add anything, you expanded the scope. So everything have to be shared with us, and it will be evaluated on an annual basis. So which means this also ensure the risk stay as low as possible. With that said, we have come to the end of the presentation. So we are now open to Q&A.
Yeah, thanks for that, David. That was fantastic and incredibly insightful. Even though, we know that you're not feeling quite well today, that was your great effort. We will have a few questions pop through. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to ask them now. And if we don't get to them all today, we will respond to you afterwards via emails. Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim, he asked if any data center certification from TIA, which covered operational certification.
Thank you so much for the question. So from TIA aspect, in PI internally, we do have a standard called DCOS, which covers the operational perspective. So under these standards, DCOS, where we covers all the processes from your facilities management, right, your DC operation, and many more. So we have total 11 disciplines under that. So you can put a search on our website called DCOS, or we will send you more information after this session.
Okay, thanks, David. The second question is from the Q&A session, and it's from Mr. Victor Lee. He asked, what does DCCC stands for?
Thank you, Victor. DCCC stands for Data Center Conformity Certification. So in layman term, we know it as Construction Facilities Certification.
Okay. Another question popped through. How much time is required from Uptime to TIA-942?
Hey, sorry, if I get the question correctly, are you referring to the audit timeline? Like how long it takes for us to complete the audit, if I get you right? So we will require 2 to 3 days on site, depending on the size of the site. So in overall, from audit assessment to report writing, it takes about 30 days plus minus from our end. If we have all the relevant information that was required for the audit, and if let's say the cooperation between the customers and EPI is at the tip-top level, so we will complete everything within 30 days from on-site audit to report writing.
Okay, this has answered your question, Mr. Sid. All right, so let's come to the next question here. Mr. Said Husseini is excuse me for pronouncing your name if it's not correct. So he asked, he want to know about cable structure heat that TA conclude in cable structure.
Thank you for the question. Edward, you want to take this question?
I can take that one. So in terms of heat, I believe he's referring to the heat load of cabling, which could occur due to, for example, power over the Ethernet. That is not directly discussed in the TIA itself, but it's discussed in the standards that are referenced. So, for example, the TIA 568.2 is indicating, for example, limited of bundle sizes, how much power is actually being able to transmit it over the various cable types. And that obviously the more power you get over a cable type, the more heat is being generated. And especially if you put all the cables together, right, then the combined heat dissipation could increase. So the guidance for that is not directly mentioned in the TIA-942, but it's in the reference standard TIA-568. Hope that helps.
Another question from Mr. Liam. Why always refer to the Uptime and/or TIA-942? Meanwhile, EU also have TSIE 50,600 standard as critical power or electrical equipment origin came from EU.
Hi, Samson. Thank you for the questions. Yeah, over in this part of the world, people tend to focus only on TIA and uptime. So yes, I agree with you. EN 5600 is highly adaptable within the Europe market. So as you are aware or you are unaware, EPI also perform EN 5600. So, and just to let you know, the fundamental of EN 5600 is very, very similar to the requirement of TIA 942.
All right, thank you, David. Another question from in the Q&A session, Mr. Muhammad. The scope of TIA-942C covers the physical security, but is it covered the cybersecurity as well? Either is the site certification or operation certification.
Thank you, Cindy. So the scope of TIA-942, yes, you're right, it covers the physical security aspect, but unfortunately, it does not cover anything virtually or from a software perspective. So TIA-942 is a data center facility standard. So it covers everything from a hardware facilities perspective. So, and unfortunately, it does not cover cybersecurity, whether from a design certification or a constructed facility certification.
Right. Yeah, I hope that it answered your question, Mr. Muhammad. Okay, the next question is from Mr. Atif. How can we judge the data center size? Is it small, medium, or large?
Most of the time, everyone goes by the power consumption of the data center, right? Like example, how many megawatt is your data center, right? Are you 100, 200, 3, 5, or 7 megawatt? So, and in EPI, from an audit perspective, we don't evaluate that 100% purely on the power of consumption. Instead, we look at the size of your data hall. So if let's say you have multiple data hall, so you are required to flag all the sizes for each and every of your data hall. So there is no large, small, or medium. So we look at everything from a square feet, square meter perspective.
Okay, thank you. All right, so another one is quite a long question actually. For the site certification, does it allow taking into account of changes and addition for future expected loads and impressions? Like in Uptime, if one wanted to mark certification for design of what is in pipeline, also 2 years in the time for other expected facility and infrastructure readiness to get them certified as constructed facility once.
Thank you. Everett, you want to take this?
I can take that one. Yes, again, there are two aspects, obviously. As mentioned, the design certificate and the, say, the constructed facility certificate. The design certificate can be based on current design as well as future design, and that will be then documented in the report. So in, for example, certain data centers where they have multiple layers, say multiple levels in the building, we can, from a design perspective, if every design is fully spec'd out, take into consideration the whole design. However, when it comes to a constructed facility, then obviously we can only certify what actually has been constructed. So let's say that you have 5 floors, one floor is actually already being fitted out. Then what we will do, we do a certification assessment on the backend infrastructure, site location, etc., as well as the compute room on the fitted out floor. If you're going to fit out the next floor over time, then we have to, of course, do an assessment on that particular floor because the fit out was non-existing during the initial assessment. And then we either take that up during the surveillance or maybe even earlier if the customer decides to do so. It is obviously not appropriate if, for example, the building gets a certification, whereas we have not assessed certain floors, because that would then be considered to be out of scope, because we cannot guarantee that if a customer, say, halfway through, make changes in the site, that's then, a reflection in the certification. And that is, of course, also why the TIA is doing the surveillance audit to continuously measure what actually is installed and whether that's still a reflection of what the certification has under scope in terms of the rating, but also in terms of the actual locations and areas that was defined.
Very clear. Thank you, Edward. Another also quite interesting question that I got from the Q&A section is that the question from Mr. Praharsh. How large is the cost difference between Uptime and TIA?
I can only answer on behalf from our perspective in terms of our pricing. So we are charging based on man days. Depending on the size of the site, if let's say the DC is not super huge, so which means we will be spending lesser man days on site and on the report writing and so on. So therefore the fee will be lower. So if the size is a lot bigger compared to the traditional data center, so then of course the size will be slightly higher. So in overall, our pricing are based on the number of man days used for the project.
All right, thank you, David. Also, the question from the same guy, following up question with the previous one, can a data center be simultaneously certified under TIA and Uptime tier standard? Do we have to pick one?
No, the answer is yes, you can have both certification for one data center. You does not need to pick only one, but of course that is up to your choice. So if you think that by having TIA certification in place, which is already sufficient because you have every aspect covered, so and you does not want to go for uptime as well, that is fine. But if you think that you have performed uptime internally and you realize the other area has yet to be inspected or assessed, you can always opt for the upgrade from Uptime to TIA program, which we will cover the rest of the areas for you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Very clear. So now let's get back to the question in the chat. We also have quite a few questions here as well. Let's continue with does TIA-942 have certification for operational sustainability like TCOS in Uptime?
Like I mentioned earlier, we are following a standards for operations called DCOS. Under DCOS, we have a total 11 disciplines as mentioned earlier in the chat, which you can view, right? My colleague have already listed out all the 11 disciplines. And one of the disciplines we are focusing on environmental sustainability. So under this particular domain, every single process is solely focusing on sustainability. Please reach out to us offline. We are more than happy to share a copy of the standards with you, so you can have a much better idea of what would be the requirement and what was exactly written within DCOS.
Okay. There's another question regarding to operational as well. Does TIA-942 offer a clearer guidance for day-to-day operation compared to Uptime, or is Uptime more operation focused?
Edward, you want to take this?
Sure. I think there are a few aspects, right? What we have addressed in this particular session is the facilities and design certification. So that is the TIA-942, and that is comparable in terms of the aspects of design and the constructed facility with the Uptime tier topology. Uptime has also other offerings, and one of the other offerings that they have is M&O. So that is focused on the maintenance and operation aspects of a data center. And that will be comparable in terms of scope, in terms of, say, the discipline within the data center being operations with what we call the DCOS. Yeah, so TIA-942, you could compare it with, say, the Uptime tier topology, and the DCOS, is in the same field operations as what M&O is. Yeah, so there are different books and guidelines, so to speak.
Right. Thank you, Edward. Let's pick up another quite interesting question. Who drives the future proofing of data center, TIA-942 or Uptime?
I think the real question is kind of like, with what is the market adoption rate, right? Is it TIA or is it 942? We have no crystal ball apart from the TIA 942 and the Uptime, which currently are the most adopted guidelines and standards in the market. There are also new elements coming into the market, being the ISO 22237, which David highlighted in the beginning. That is, shaping up also. So we see also a trend that more and more data centers start adopting that particular standard. And again, for EPI, it doesn't really matter. We can do auditing and certification for ISO 22237 as well, because we are incorporated as a registered certification body for ISO as well. So it's really up to the customer, what they think is the right business fit for them. And some people choose Uptime, some people do TIA, some start leaning towards ISO. And again, there is no reason why you can't have all three for that matter.
Agree on that.
So yeah, since Edwards is on the floor, I will take another question that addresses you directly. So the question is, in continuation of certification question, what is the allowed time between design certification, let's say done for phase 1 with design of phase 2? How much time does one have a target to get the facility constructed as per design document? Now, if during surveillance audit, if auditor identify that phase 2 didn't even start, TIA will certify the facility of phase 1. And what about the design certification, which was initially done for both phase?
Yeah, it's a very practical question, clearly indicating a phased implementation approach. So what would happen in these particular scenarios is that we have, in this case, a design certificate that is encompassing both phase 1 and phase 2. Then the customer starts the construction and they only construct what is in phase 1, and they might leave phase 2 open for future development depending on customer requirements. So what will happen then is that you have actually two certificates in parallel. So the overall design certificate, which encompasses both 1 and 2, you can extend that one by the virtue of that the phase 2 has not been implemented yet. Phase 1 will go into the constructed certification facility, and obviously during the the surveillance, we will find out that level 2, or say the phase 2 is still not done. So then we'll just keep that out of scope. Let's assume that now phase 2 comes in activation as well. Then what you could do is leave the design certification behind, because that has now been overtaken by the constructed facility certificate. So then you only need to maintain one, in order to prove that both phase 1 and phase 2 has gone live now and is under the review of the TIA standard.
Okay, thank you. Very clear. And we are getting to more and more detail and a practical question now. But unfortunately, we are running out of time. We only have 3 minutes left for the webinar. So I really appreciate all the questions that you guys have shared in the chat and in the Q&A session. However, we might have to address that and answer it in an email and send directly to you and to the participants today. And yeah, feel free to continue to ask questions via email to us if you still have one, and we are pleased to answer all of your questions. And once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope to see you all again and discussing deeper topics. Thank you
Thank you
very
so much,
much.
everyone, for coming on the call. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that.